Welcome to Soulful Science Podcast. I'm your host, Heather Portia Louise Plumberg.
And I'm your host, Dr. Shanna Moody. We're here to challenge viewpoints, discuss the latest research, navigate hard feelings, and offer practical advice on everything from setting boundaries to hitting your next PR at the gym. Listen along each week as we blend wisdom and wellness on your path to your highest self.
We're bringing you the latest trends, science, and studies on wellness, mental health, and fitness, plus sharing the spiritual tools that guide us, heal us, and ground us. Our goal is to blend the best of both worlds, science and spirit, so that you can live with more balance, purpose, knowledge, and support.
You're tuned in to Soulful Science, your source of uplifted living where empowered women unite knowledge and intuition.
All right, we're doing it. First episode. It's happening.
Oh my gosh.
Yay!
Here we are.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I can't believe it's taken us so long to do this. And here we are, finally, 2 years later, recording a podcast.
A long time in the making for sure.
Yeah. So for those of y'all listening, welcome to Soulful Science Podcast, episode 1. I'm Heather, and we got Shanna.
I am Shanna.
All right, and go ahead. I'm going to let you take it.
Yeah, so we want to let you have a chance to get to know your host of the Soulful Science podcast, and I am Shanna Moody. A little bit of a background about me, educationally wise. I have a bachelor's and a master's in exercise science, and then I have a doctorate in education, and I am a full-time college professor of kinesiology at a small private university in Texas. And I am engaged to be married, and we have that coming up.
Very soon.
So, yeah, September 21st. So whenever you're listening to this, so we're in the process of planning that. And I am a college rodeo mom. My son is about to start his senior year in college, which is crazy to say. And he's actually attending Sul Ross State University online, which is in Alpine, where Heather and I met. So just talk about life come full circle.
Yeah, I forgot that he was going there. You told me that a while ago. That's so cool.
Yeah. So I did not grow up around anything rodeo related at all, or horses. I grew up in a neighborhood. We played sports. Although I joke that I am not an athlete because I just don't have that much athletic ability. I like to call myself a fit-lete. Like I am fit and I can do some things, but I'm not really athletic. Like don't ask me to throw anything at you.
Yeah, so I remember the first time like that really sunk in for me was when we were having one of those beer Olympics, and you were like dead serious, like, yo, I cannot throw. And I was like, Shanna, it's just ping pong. They throw the ball. And I was like, just shocked by how bad you actually were at it. And I was like, oh, you're not kidding. Like, that is not your skill. You have so many strengths and you're so good at so many things. It's just like
throwing is not one of them.
Yeah. You're not lying. Yep, I will never forget that. It was awesome.
Yes, our poor remote control in our house, because my fiance is always like, throw me the remote. It's never a good idea. Never.
You're like, no, I will walk across the house.
Yes.
Fit-lete. I love that saying.
Fit-lete. Yeah, so I like to coin that phrase. I don't know if I'm the first person to ever use it, but we're going to claim that I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I joke that my son, I think he got some of my athleticism because there's some things, same thing, like that he just cannot do for being such a talented rodeo competitor. There are certain athletic skills that I'm like, why can't you do this? Even I can do this. Like, I don't understand.
But he does like roping and stuff, right? So that like hand-eye coordination is there a little bit. Yeah, okay.
Yes. Yeah, he definitely got that from the other side of his breeding, not from me, for sure. For sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Cool.
that's a little bit about me.
Yeah.
Tell us about you, Heather.
All right. Well, I am Heather Plumberg, or Portia Louise, which is still my name, just my middle name, but I get both. Some people are confused. So my background is in sports and dance. So I grew up competitive sportleet. Athlete. Played volleyball, track, pretty much anything that was active. But I spent most of my life as a dancer, and was working professionally up until COVID, and then kind of left that world a little bit, and then through that found CrossFit, and fell in love with CrossFit. And pre-CrossFit, I was a personal trainer, for probably 6 or 7 years, yoga instructor, anything that was teaching something physical, like I've done it. Then found CrossFit and just fell in love. It just kind of dove off the deep end with learning about CrossFit. I'm a self-proclaimed enthusiast when it comes to learning about the body. I've got every book on kinesiology for dance, kinesiology for the body, how does the body work. Got my nutrition coaching certification a while back. Just kind of all things health and wellness is my love. And then, on top of that, the extra piece is you take me throwing all the barbells around in the world, and then I come home and I meditate, and I go through all of my spiritual practice, and I'm like a hippie woo-woo, like completely different person outside of the gym. I have 2 floofers, and those are my babies. And what else? I think that's kind of it for now.
And do you want to tell where you live?
Oh yeah, sorry. I now live in Florida, so we are in Florida now, year 2. So out right next to Disney World. I'm loving it. I love that easy access to Disney.
I love listening to you talk about yourself, and then realizing that you said that you realize that I'm bad at throwing, but the one thing I don't know that you've ever seen me do is dance. And I'm even worse at dancing.
Oh no,
than I am
I'm such a good dancer.
No, I'm even worse. So I think it's hilarious that I know you as a dancer and know that about you, but it's not something that we ever experienced together.
Yeah.
And so
now we have to. Now we have to go dancing.
We should do a dance off or something, or make a reel of you trying to teach me to dance, because that would be comical.
Done. It's so funny because I forget, in Alpine, I very much came into that community with everyone being like, oh, you're a dancer, because that's what I was sleeping and breathing dance, up until a year into living there. And then out here, I moved here, and it's this reminder for people that oh yeah, you danced. And I'm just what a weird shift in my life to everywhere I'd ever been, it was always, that's the dancer. What does Heather do? She's a dancer. And now it's oh, she's a CrossFitter. And I'm this feels weird. I don't know how to, yes, but am I also still a dancer? So, which I am. I went to a dance class yesterday. It was very amazing, and I miss the studio, and it was very rewarding for my soul. So I'm still keeping my dancer title, and we'll give you a dancer title. We'll teach you line dancing. That is up your alley. We will teach you some line dancing.
Okay, deal. And then the others, and then seeing the similarity of us getting certifications and teaching every different fitness format. Also been a yoga instructor, but also taught random stuff like trampoline fitness. I have a trampoline in my house.
We gotta talk about your trampoline journey.
Yeah,
this is a cool
and I
story.
taught Pound, the drumstick fitness class,
my
and
gosh,
I've taught
my sister
cycle.
did that.
Yeah,
I didn't know you did that. My
so
sister was a Pound instructor. How funny.
Yeah, and then ran fitness boot camps outdoors, and cycle and kickboxing and literally anything else, and taught in a CrossFit gym, but never taught CrossFit or got certified in CrossFit.
Right. That's so cool.
Yeah. So same thing. You were talking about your dancer persona when I moved to Alpine, and people didn't automatically know me as the fitness person and my strong fitness background. I was a little bit offended, right?
Right. You're ew, what?
Wait. Hello.
Yeah, it is weird to have that shift. And it feels so good when you get back into it, though. When, even in Alpine, shifting back and getting to teach at Sol Ross and getting to be part of the theater department and getting to choreograph. And it's this comforting blanket, I felt for having spent that time there as just a boot camp teacher, and then CrossFit instructor, and then, I was the yoga teacher there for a while. And same thing, I was just kind of offended. Why is nobody acknowledging, my 30 plus years of dance experience? And it's, it's just wild to think what we think the world sees us as. And then when that is reflected back to us very differently, it's oh, what? Ugh. It's so crazy. Yeah. Speaking of Alpine, and so, just get this story out of how we met, and obviously we met at the gym. I feel like for those of you that don't know Alpine, Texas, there is one gym. It's just the one. It is that small of a town. Walmart is a 2.5-hour drive. So if that gives you any reference, you have to go a very long way to get anywhere. Through this one gym, my father was a member there and lived in Alpine, and that's how I ended up there. And naturally, I was just like, I guess I go to the gym now because there's nothing else to do. And so fell in love with the gym, fell in love with the people there, worked my way into coaching there. And then, gosh, I wasn't even there very long before you moved to Alpine. I don't even think I was there a full year before you came to Alpine.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right.
Our timelines were pretty similar. And I vaguely remember our first interaction. And I don't remember if you were in class or if you were just in there working out or class had just ended. But I know that I was coming off of teaching or going into teaching, and you were in the open CrossFit space, and somehow our paths inter. I think you asked me about like the town or where do people go or what do people do, which becomes fairly common for newbies there. But it's like, so what do we do? And it's like, you're looking at it. This is what we do. We are all very fit. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that I automatically saw you and I was like, okay, this is going to be my friend. I need to go. Like, it's so weird, like talking about making friends. Like, okay, so I moved to Alpine having 0 people there. Like, I knew one person that had told me about the job out there. And I think we can kind of go into that. The pandemic brought us both out there.
Yeah.
And so when they called me about moving to Alpine, I was like, and I just laughed it off. And then lo and behold, the next thing I knew, I was loaded up with a fifth wheel RV headed to Alpine. And again, if you don't know where this is, think like we are south of El Paso, like on the Mexico border, essentially. And it's just such a remote place. And you really have to want to be there to be there. And you have to learn to live a little more rustically. You don't have access to a lot of conveniences. Yeah. And so, yeah, same thing, kind of having a fitness background. I thought, okay, if I work out at the gym at the college or at the university where I was teaching, I will never meet anyone because all I will ever see is students. And that is not a good idea to be a single woman in a town with college students. And so I was like, I'm going to go pay to go to this gym, even though I have free access right here next to my office.
I forget about the Soulful gym.
Yeah, just to meet people. And so when I saw you, I was like, okay, it's kind of like hitting on someone. I felt like I was picking you up. I was like, hey, can I get your number? Like, can we hang out? Like, you look like someone that I would be friends with. Like, we look like we have things in common.
Yeah, but it's so true. I never thought of it until you just said that. That was how it was there. Like, I did the same thing. Like, you had to just go up to people and be like, so we're going to be friends now because you don't have another choice. Yeah, just hitting on people all the time. Friendship dating, I love it.
Oh my gosh, I had a personal trainer that used to describe trying to get new clients as fitness foreplay. He was like, when you're trying to get a new client, you need to like compliment their nails and notice their accessories, and you need to, and he didn't mean it in an inappropriate way, but he was just kind of like the same thing you would do to pick someone up, right? Like, you have to attract them to you.
How funny, I never thought of it like that. But yeah, true, you do kind of have to put on that extra layer. Wow. Yeah, so I love this though, because it leads us kind of into, I think we'll tap on our personal journey and friendships and stuff a little bit deeper in the next episode. But, the whole root of this podcast is going to be this type of work. It's like us becoming friends, but also how we ended up and what Alpine did to kind of completely transform our lives. I feel like I can speak for you a little bit in saying that, like, it's a total life-changing journey for both of us, and not just talking about career, but everything, every type of health and wellness and everything that falls under that umbrella, spiritual, mental, physical, I feel like changed for both of us in Alpine. And what a cool experience we had. So I think, that led us to a very fun Wine Wednesday at my house, where you and I were left drinking alone in my house. Everyone had gone home, and just like having those conversations with you and these really different views of the world. And I think that's what's going to be so unique about our podcast, is that we have so many similarities, and we love a lot of the same stuff, but we have really different upbringings and we have really different viewpoints, and rambling to basically like let everybody know, like, this is kind of what our podcast is going to be is bringing together different views from spirituality, different views on morals and philosophy and political ideas and work ethic and being a parent to not being a parent and everything from navigating hard feelings and hard conversations. And what else should we throw in there?
I mean, I think you nailed it. Yeah, it's just so unique how, like you said, that we have these drastically different backgrounds. And when we came together, it would be easy to just blow you off and be like, oh, well, you didn't grow up like I did. You're not country. You're not rodeo. You're not, like we don't have the same like the same degrees, whatever. But then when we actually started talking, we realized that despite those differences because of those differences, we could have even more amazing conversations and go even deeper because we brought something different to the table and we could learn from each other and then see how those things sort of melded together was like just so enlightening and eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I love that about us is that I have very few relationships where I feel very comfortable having challenging conversations because I'm a people pleaser. Might as well just get that out in the open. Like I am such a people pleaser that I'm like, don't say the wrong thing. And like, if I don't agree with them, like I can just nod and be like, okay. And like in the conversation, it's always from this fear of like, oh my gosh, that person's not going to like me or they're going to judge me or they're going to label me something that isn't true. And you're one of the few people that it's like, no, we've had difficult conversations or challenging and not like mean. I don't use those words to be like we're fighting, but it's always just like I didn't think of it like that. And let me ask you questions and just open-ended dialogue. And I love that we can just be like, cool, we disagree or we do agree and we're still friends. And it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, the world didn't end because we walked away from a conversation and we don't have the exact same viewpoint. And I love that.
Yes. Yeah. And isn't that the danger of social media these days?
Like, it's terrifying.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I write something and then delete it because they're like you, afraid it's going to offend someone or just know that it's going to be met with confrontation instead of just taken for like, hey, let's have a conversation about this or let's think openly about this and see if we can look at it differently.
Yeah, and with our line of work too, like especially more so I would think for you as a professor, like, there is that fear now amongst everybody of, whatever you put out there. I mean, you could lose your job over saying the wrong thing nowadays. Like your life can be completely, thrown to pieces just by putting the wrong thing out there. And I always joke with my amazing partner who I love so much, who has no filter at all for anything ever. And although he is joking 99.99% of the time, I'm always like, babe, you can't say that. Like, yes. Even if it's a joke, like my career's at risk. Like people that I work, with could be here. And I'm like constantly on alert, like, don't ever offend anybody. Don't say anything wrong. Do everything you're supposed to. And like, what a shitty way to live. Like, honestly, I got to get over that. But maybe there's a therapy session in my future. Who knows? But
for real, especially in higher ed, it is so, you have to be so politically correct in higher education. And so that is something like, same thing. My fiance, when we were at the airport one time, he said something and I'm like, oh my gosh, you would get fired at my university if you said that. No, you cannot say that. That is not okay. Not okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we are both avid readers. I think you and I are both like, we probably have multiple audiobooks, podcasts, and real tangible physical books going on all at the same time, always.
All at the same time. Yeah. Yes. Too many to count. So one of the things that, we want to do in this podcast with y'all is at the beginning of each episode, just kind of share, a healthy habit that we're doing, a book that we're reading, something new that we tried, our gratitude practice. So my current reading book is The Coddling of the American Mind.
Book makes it plain
which Audible wanted to play right now. It is such a challenging book to listen to with a very open mind. But, so that's my healthy habit that I'll kind of snag right now is reading, probably too much. I have my brain food on my Audible and then my brain candy in my real books. So.
Oh, I like the way you said that, brain food and brain candy. Ooh, that's kind of a cool way to think about that. Yeah, I've never heard it put like that before. Yeah, I love it.
It is definitely brain. Like I need to be able to rewind things and re-listen to them and slow them down and speed them up for when I'm trying to like absorb. But man, ACOTAR series right now, and it's candy. I'm just like, soak it up. We don't have to think too hard about this.
Yeah.
What about you? What's yours?
So I'm always listening to books all the time as well, but I tend to have to alternate between like something educational and something just completely off the kilter, like romance novel, or I love like suspense mystery stuff, just to give my brain a little bit of a break. But right now I'm on a deep dive about women's hormones. It's
Shut
kind
up,
of
me
where I'm
too.
at.
Okay, I'm sorry. Keep going. Why are we always doing the
Yes.
same things
So
together? Go ahead.
yeah, so I think that you told me you love Huberman Lab as well, right? His
Yes.
podcast. Okay, so he had a female hormone expert on
Stacey
just
Sims.
recently. Yes, did you
That
listen to that one?
podcast is gold. I sent it to all of my
Yes.
clients. I was like,
Yes.
y'all need to listen to this. Go.
Yes.
Yes.
You were talking about brain food. I am like, okay, so I just put it on fast forward or whatever. I listen to things faster usually.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, wait, I got to rewind it. I got to slow it down. I got to hit a bookmark here. I got to
Yes.
come back to this point. And so, yes, I apparently have reached the age where my hormones have just decided to go chaotic. And I was definitely one of the women who thought, I'm fit, I'm active, I eat healthy. This is not going to impact me. And now here I am, smack in the face with all of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, Stacey Sims, Dr. Stacey Sims is amazing. She has a book called, she has 2 books, I believe, out now, but the first one that came out was called Roar. If you haven't read it, highly recommend. I think you would love it. It's all about like women's performance and fitness for the female body, and like just a really amazing read. But she is wonderful. Like the research, the education that she has, and we'll put all this in the show notes too. So we'll link to that episode for everybody, and the books that we're reading, and I mean, because really good stuff, especially for any of our female listeners who are their bodies are changing. We will have episodes about that. We'll dive into that a little bit more, the science of the female body and longevity work, and why our bodies are different. And kind of
But it was a great episode for women of all ages and for men as well, because she did talk about across the lifespan, so starting young and then what to do even older. So it's not just my age group. So I think I want to make sure that everybody knows it's applicable to everyone. And, you know, I think it's so important for men to understand women as well, and to understand the differences between us that sometimes tend to get glossed over. Yeah.
Anyways, okay, I need to stop rambling because I could just dive into that podcast episode right now. That is not what we're talking about right this moment, but I love that you listened to that episode. I've been off the deep end as well over the last couple months about women's hormones, and I'm starting to get a few more of my clients who are also, you know, going into that perimenopausal phase of life, and so just lots of questions coming in that I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to be more educated on this.
Then she's so she had the complete opposite perspective from Dr. Mary Claire, who's been kind of the foremost person before I found Stacey Sims, who's saying, you know, a lot of the opposite stuff. So now I've got to go back and dive in and see where they align, and then what I need to take away from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting so excited.
Yeah.
Maybe
Total
we should have started
sidebar.
with that as our first episode.
I know.
The thing we both love, science. Let's go. And fitness.
Yes.
How does this work?
Well, and I saw in your notes that you put down a nerd, and I was like, I describe myself the same way all the time. Like, I am total self-proclaimed nerd. If you call me a nerd, I will be so happy. It's a compliment.
And in every way too, because I'm a nerd. I'm like, yeah, I love science. I love the things. I'm also probably going to watch Lord of the Rings for the 800th time. Okay, because I'm a big nerd. Okay, so books are out of the way. So yeah, it's just kind of prepping for future episodes. We'll love to start out sharing with y'all what are our healthy habits, and it'll probably snowball into this conversation because that's what it's for. But I want to segue us into kind of our main topic for today. Our introductions, and then our friendship, and led to this conversation about friendship, and the science of friendship, and the effects that COVID had on it, and also the challenges and newfound strengths and new ways that we can make friends as we get older. We're not meeting people and forced in the same room with them all the time. And even when we are, the gym, for example, it's you have that small window of time where if you're in the gym with your headphones on and it's a LA Fitness style gym, you're probably not making friends. If you're in group class, you've got that hour with them, and then a lot of the times it's cool, see you next week, and that was the end. There's no actual deeper dive friendship that develops from there.
Meeting you was such a breath of fresh air because growing up in a really small town and making friends with your high school friends, I actually went to a college and I thought I would be one of the few people at my college from my hometown, and I ended up being one of 15. And I was like, oh, it's going to be like high school all over. But it was so crazy that I ended up not remaining friends with any of those people, because when I got to college, I got to kind of be myself, and you realize what your actual interests are and who you really want to surround yourself with. And no offense to those people, there was nothing wrong with them, but we were just friends by association, not necessarily because of anything we necessarily really shared in common about our beliefs or interests or anything like that. It was just, you're friends with who you're around.
Yeah, sometimes I feel bad because I'm the same way. Like, if it wasn't for social media, I don't think I would have any connection at all to a single person from my high school. Like, none. And even the connections we do have on social media are just that. It's not like we're messaging and talking and catching up. It's like randomly I see them pop up on my feed, or like if I get on Facebook, it's like someone's birthday. I'm like, who are you? I'm like, oh, we went to school together. And I feel horrible, but then I'm like, but that just means that they weren't my people. Like, I didn't get to choose where I grew up. I didn't get to choose where I went to school. Like, all of those choices were completely out of my control. And then as I grew up and I changed those locations, you're right. It's like, oh yeah, I get to choose these people in my life. I get to meet people and be like, yeah, we're friends now. Like, we fit.
Well, and social media is actually one of the reasons that we don't have as many friends. And they're saying that loneliness is the newest health epidemic. Like, it's kind of replacing cigarette smoking. We're actually seeing cigarette smoking going down, but that loneliness is actually the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's having that huge of an impact on our health. Yeah. And that, partly it was brought on by the pandemic, but there's other trends in society too. Like, if you notice, the age that people are getting married is growing later and later in life. And so that's part of it too. And so we have less friends because usually we meet friends through our spouse and through couples and where they work and who they know, so we don't have that connection. We're more mobile than ever. Like, you and I met in a random place where we had moved, but now we moved again, but we can still connect through this. So we don't necessarily, we're not as planted, so we don't maybe make new friends. And like, for example, where I live, I'm 20 minutes from anything, so I don't really have a hometown right now. I'm kind of in the middle of no man's land. And then the other thing that I find really interesting, because I am not this type of parent, but people are staying closer to their parents. And so they're not making friends because their parents are their friends now. And I grew up in the era that your parents are not your friends, right? Like, they are your disciplinarians and they are not your friends. And I even kind of still took that a little bit into being a parent myself, that, like, I want to be close to my son, but we are not, I don't need to know where he is every single second. I never had the app where I tracked him. Like, I'm just such a different parent. But they're showing, and especially males, they're showing that they are referring to their parents more and more for emotional support than their friendships or than their significant others.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really interesting.
It's not like, it's weird because it's not like new. It's just kind of, these things are, I shouldn't say that. It's new in the generations, right? But it's just now coming to light, I feel like, where this idea of kind of helicopter parenting and the fearfulness of like, well, my kid can't go anywhere without me because it's not safe. Like, the world is dangerous mentality has led to people spending more time with their parents, right? These children are spending more and more time with their parents because they don't have the freedoms like you and I did, where it's like, yeah, go play down the street, go take your bike, be home by 5. If you're not home by 5 and I call their house and you're not there, you're in trouble. Like, that was it. There wasn't this like horrifying,
mine was like, flicker the porch light. Like when you see the porch light flicker,
Yeah, it's like we weren't. I mean, my parents did a little bit because they were in law enforcement, so there was a little bit of fear, that was instilled in us of like, don't talk to strangers and don't do this, and here's how to like be safe. And I feel like I got that a little bit more than most people just because of the nature of my parents' jobs. But even still, my parents were never like, you can't go by yourself, I'll drive you. It's like, is it down the street? Go walk. Do you have a bike? Figure it out yourself. And they don't do that anymore. Now it is crazy to me when I see people drive their children down the street. And I have legitimately seen people load up their kids in the car, drive them a block and drop them off. I'm like, they can't walk there? Like, what? Like, what is going on? But you're right, and that leads to more and more time with mom and dad, less and less time with friendship, less and less growth in what those friendships bring to us, and all the mental growth that we get from being away from authority figures as kids is really important. And then you add in cell phones and social media. Like, even when kids do hang out nowadays, like, I see people are just all like, in adults too, right? Like, we see adults in a room, and, you know, I see this all the time in gyms. Class is over, what does everyone do? Sit down and pull their phone out. And I'm like, hi.
Yeah. I actually hate it when you hear in media they blame the college students or the kids for you being on their cell phones all the time, because the kids have never known life without a cell phone. Yeah. They've always had one. Yeah. And they're actually afraid to be without it, not because they don't want it, but because that's what they've been taught. You don't do anything without your phone. Yeah. So like in yoga, I don't know if you saw this, but my students would try to hide their phone under their yoga mat. But then when you would actually get them to turn it off or leave it away from their mats, it was just this like sense of relief. To not be tethered to it for a while and not have to worry about what was coming in, and just to have this break from it. But the parents are so much worse because it's still new and novel to us. And so we're the worst at it, you know, like we're worse than the kids.
Yeah, I hear that a lot whenever I'm listening to like podcasts, when somebody starts to talk about schools and bringing, you know, should cell phones be in schools is like always a hot topic. And now everyone's back in school, so it's coming up again. And it's like a lot of teachers come out and say, they're like, the parents are texting kids, like they know they're in class. And it's like, I try to think about like what is so important that you can't talk to your child at the end of the day. Like, my mom and dad did not have access to me, and I had a cell phone in high school, but it wasn't like a smartphone. Like, that didn't come out till later, right? But we had a phone and we had texting, but it was just like my parents weren't calling me, you know, or texting me. They're like, see you at home. Your cell phone is here in case you need it. And now you're right, it's the parents. Parents are texting their kids, and they're reaching out to them and checking in on them all day long. And it's like, how do you expect them to become adults?
Learn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should take the phones away from the parents at work.
Right? Yes, you can
or
have
just
your
block
phone at school, but no parents can have it at work.
Or block the parents and see how many notifications they actually got during school.
Right.
But obviously the pandemic impacted it too, because now parents aren't working 8 to 5 like they used to. Like your parents and my parents probably went to work and were at a physical job, you know, or physically had to be at their job. And we have a lot more people working from home, and work was the primary place where people made friendships as adults. And so if we're not in the workplace, we're not meeting friends there. So now again, the parents are just like, well, I don't have friends here, so I'm going to talk to my kids. So it's kind of like this circle. So I'm going to guess you have probably had to make new friends moving to Florida. You've changed locations. So how was it for you making new friends?
It has been tough. I'd say the first 6 to 8 months that I was out here, I mean, I wasn't working as much as I am now. My schedule was much lighter, and I spent so much time at home and so much time with the dogs. Well, the dog at that time, we didn't have the second one. And it was fine until it wasn't, right? There's only so many days where I'm like, okay, I did all the laundry and did all the dishes and rearranged all of the things, and then I learned how to play a video game, and I am not a gamer. And the fact that I'm like reduced now to like, I've done all of the things I can think of to do, that I'm now playing a video game. You know, it did. I was trying to constantly think like, how do I make friends? And it's such a different dynamic, because the first thought is like, well, obviously I'll make friends at the gym. I work at a gym, so that'll be easy. Now, the gym that I'm at, the median age is higher. So a lot of these members, at least the ones I have exposure to, I don't coach the evening classes, so I don't get to see them as much. But I would say overall, everyone's probably 10 years older than me, 10 to 15. Kids are older, high school. Everyone's kind of a little bit busier lives because of that, right? So it's not necessarily that I can't be friends with people that age, it's just that our lifestyles are different. I don't have children, I don't have kids in school, I don't work a 9 to 5. So that dynamic has been a little challenging. Plus, my schedule is really hard to go do anything. So a lot of these things are me trying to find ways, like I go to bed at 7, I wake up at 3:30. So a Wednesday night, like
craziest schedule.
I'm like texting you when I'm awake and you're just going to bed.
Literally.
And so it's hard, because there's things that I would love to do where it's like, they have the breweries out here do like beer runs, and it's like, you know, we go for a run and then we all go back and we have a drink, but it's like Wednesday nights at 6. And I'm like, cool, I won't be there, you know? And so things like that make it a little challenging. And I think that that's my personal biggest struggle is finding things that fit my schedule. I have made friends inside the gym, and it really still had to be, it's funny because we talked about in Alpine where you kind of feel obligated to be like, cool, who are you and what do we do here and should we hang out? You have to do the same thing in the city. And I grew up a city girl my whole life. And I remember growing up in the city, it's like, you don't talk to strangers. Like, I'm not just going to walk up to some strange person and be like, you want to go have coffee with me? Let's be friends. Like, no, you don't do that. You give, you know, there's a 2-year freeze in the city for a reason. Like, headphones on, head down, go where you need to be. So Alpine really threw me for a loop, and like strangers are talking to me at the grocery store. I'm like, I don't know you. Like, why are we having a conversation? But I found that having that experience has allowed me to be more open in even just the gym setting, or you know, I went to a dance class yesterday, be more conversational with strangers, and it doesn't have to be like, nobody talk to each other, we all have our own lives and we can't be friends. You know, it's me going up to people and creating conversation and being like, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. Like, do you want to come? Or like, you know, my partner and I are going to go to our favorite brewery on Saturday. Like, you should join us. And it is still the city, so you still get people that, you know, it takes longer for those things to happen because there's so many other things going on. Everyone has their own life happening. Everyone is busy with their own schedule. So you get together a lot less often. And I've had to really learn to readjust my scales in that way, where it's like my view of the world via Alpine was nobody had anything to do ever. And so we all always got to hang out together. And I freaking loved it. Like, I loved that so much. And now I'm like, oh, you all have other friends that I have never met because this city is big, you know, and it's like you have things to do outside of my world, which sounds like such a weird, selfish way to put it, but it's true. Because in Alpine, it's like your world and my world are the same. Your bubble is just as big as mine. Like, that's it. So yeah, it's been challenging. It's been challenging, and I think without the Alpine experience, I wouldn't even be doing as well as I am. And I still don't think I'm doing as good as I could be in making friends.
Well, you were amazing in Alpine. You were like the extroverted version of me that I needed. Like, you know, I'm like the extroverted introvert. Like, if I'm in charge of something, I can be in front of people and I don't have a problem with that. And I like to feed off of people, but I'm not good in like small settings, like one-on-one or small groups or mingling. Like, that is my worst fear in life. And so you were really good at like, hey, no, we're having this thing and you're coming. Like, and I would have just been like, she invited me, but I don't think she really meant it. And I don't know anyone else there, so I'm not going, you know, like I would have easily talked myself out of it. So you were amazing at that. But the research says that like 20% of people haven't made a new friend in 5 years.
Oh my God.
And so
5 years?
That's crazy, right?
Now, is that like, they just have the same group of friends for 5 years kind of thing? Wow.
Yeah, they just haven't made a new close friend. Yeah. So how many close friends would you say you have?
In person, like in the flesh here in Florida?
No, I guess just in general, like that you would say are your close friends, like your people that you're going to for emotional support.
I think I have for sure 2. Could probably throw the third. Yeah, I have 3. No, I have 3. I have 3 people that I know, like, I can call right now and be like, I need you. Here's what's happening. And they're like, well, let's do it. Yeah, 3 people.
Well, that makes you right on par with Americans. And I think that's something we're all curious about, and a little bit of that FOMO, right? Like, oh, they must have a ton of friends and they probably have more friends than I do. And, you know, but that's the average, right? The most people claim that they have about 3 close friends. And so hopefully that maybe puts a few people at ease that you're not missing out if you don't have more friends than that's most people have about 2 to 3 close friends and maybe 1 best friend.
Yeah. I'm fascinated about the best friend thing. Like, does that taper off as we get older?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely goes back to what you're saying about, as we get spouses and we get a little bit older and maybe we don't have as much drama. Like I know for me, my best friend and I are the closest when there's a lot of drama going on. But then when our lives are rocking along and everything's pretty steady, we don't talk as much, because we lean on each other in the hard times, but in the good times, we sort of just check in like, hey, everything's still good? Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
Like, or let's catch up and tell me about all the good, but not as much as when we need something or we're having a tough time. At least that's me personally.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. I actually don't even have that. Like I think about who would I call my best friend outside of my partner, who, I think he is my best friend now and always. And so excluding him, it's like all of my three people kind of show up for me in such different ways that I can't prioritize one of those things over the other. Which is kind of cool. Which got me thinking about like bridesmaids parties and like how do you pick a maid of honor? And you're getting married, so do you have a bridal party?
No, because it is, we're remarrying, like we're older, and we've done this before, so no bridal party. But ironically, my best friend is the person that I met in kindergarten. What I call my best friend is the person that I met in kindergarten.
That's
and we didn't go to college together, so we haven't been in the same town since we and actually her parents moved away from our hometown when we graduated, so we don't even go back to the same hometown when we go home. But we've been able to somehow maintain our friendship all these years.
Is she in Texas or no?
She's in Texas. She's in the Houston area, so we're a good 10 hours apart still. So
which is none of y'all been to Texas, like. It's so funny when I talk to people about where I'm from and they're like, oh, you're kind of by Austin, right? I'm like, 7 more hours, like just keep going. And they're like, what? And you're still in Texas? I'm like, you've never been. I got it. Okay.
I know. Those friends that are like, hey, I'm coming to Texas. We should meet up. And I'm like, hey, you're still 8 hours away.
Right. They're like, I'm going to Corpus Christi. You're like, cool. That's nowhere near me.
Yeah. We did a little like mini trip to Austin last year for our birthdays because we both have summer birthdays and got tattoos together for our birthday.
What?
Yes. My first tattoo.
I was going to say, I didn't know you had a tattoo. I thought you were tattooed.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah. They made fun of me when I wanted pink, and I was like, no, I love pink.
How do you not like pink?
Yeah, but I read, okay, so you were talking about your partner being your best friend. I heard something on an interview the other day that men are healthier and live longer when they're married and are happier.
Yeah.
Women live shorter lives when they are married. And the researchers, all they can figure out is that the women are like nagging the men, like go to the doctor, get your checkup, take your medicine, like take care of this, but no one's taking care of the woman. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, oh gosh, I feel like that's a conversation too we could create a whole episode on. It's like the mental load, I think is what it's being called, right? Like the mental load that the women take on in the house for men. I think there's this comedian I saw on like a TikTok thing I was watching, and it was like a woman walks by a mess and she cleans it up. A man walks by a mess and he goes, okay, and like keeps going. And it's like, that is the mental load. Like, we go around and we see all these things and it's like, okay, we got to do this. And we're keeping the timeline going in our heads of like the schedule for the day and their schedule for the day and all of the to-do lists for the future. And it's like, it's exhausting. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yet I do remember seeing that somewhere that we are better off not getting married.
Which is why we need friends, because there are actual health benefits of friendship. So in addition to, like, I talked about loneliness could be equivalent to smoking. They actually, in the blue zone studies, when they looked at these places have you ever heard of the blue zone studies?
Yeah, I love the blue zone.
Yeah, so the places where the people... Yeah, where the people live the longest, one of the things that they found in those people who live the longest was that they have a social connection. Right. And so having friends actually helps you live longer. You're less likely to have heart disease if you have a friendship, because a lot of our friendships are more active. So maybe we're meeting for a walk or we're meeting to go play, like pickleball right now is huge in my area. I don't know if it is in yours, but gosh, like
yes.
Every demographic is playing pickleball right now. Everybody's playing. It's so crazy. Yeah. It helps us better handle stress. So like we talked about, like I go to my girlfriend when I'm having a stressful situation and try to get some soothing there. And then it helps build our resilience. And especially because we can see our friends go through something, and if they can get through it, then it gives us that belief that we can get through it too. So there's amazing, incredible benefits. And I definitely found that with you for sure.
Thank you. And same for you. I mean, I remember, like, I can't remember the first time, like, I thought this, but I remember thinking, like, all throughout our friendship in Alpine that I was like, man, like, I really like having Shanna. Like, I loved our conversations. I loved, again, like, just the ability to feel comfortable in a conversation. And I think that's so important in friendships, you know, like, not having surface level friendships. You know, and I saw it somewhere, it's like this list of changing all the verbiage. And it's like, it's okay to just call your coworkers your coworkers. It's okay to just call the people that you just associate with different labels. Not everybody is your friend. And I remember reading that and being like, yes, because I used to be that way. I would just call everybody's my friend. Oh, my friend so-and-so. Oh, and it's like, most people aren't my friends. And that's not a bad thing, right? And it's like, we have this idea, I feel like, that if they're not my friend or I'm not their friend, then we must not like each other. And it's like, no, friendship is just this deeper level thing where you could have a conversation and there's this emotional safety there, right? There's this emotional safety net for me and this person to be ourselves. And I don't have that with everybody. Not everybody that I work with is my friend, but I do like them, you know? And I think that's an important distinguishing factor. And with you very quickly became one of those people where I was like, I feel comfortable with this person. Like, and we have good conversation and we have fun and we enjoy a lot of the same things. Like, oh, that's a friend. You know, it's like I'm relearning what that word means in my 30s. Yep. Because your whole life growing up, it's like everybody's your friend. And
yeah,
you hung out once, so you must be friends. And it's like, not really. Like, we just enjoyed each other's company.
Yeah. Well, and you tapped on something really key there about making new friends, which is the ability to be vulnerable. Like, if you want to go beyond surface level, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And I think that's, I'm pretty much a open cup, right? Like, I'm going to tell you, I'm not afraid to tell people things. And I think sometimes that actually deters for me because people are not quite ready for that much information about me yet, or that much vulnerability. But apparently it's something that most other people struggle with.
Yes. It is. I do love that about you too, though, because you've always just been like, yeah, these are what I'm thinking and I'm going to say it. And I am not that way. Again, people pleaser over here. So me being vulnerable is like, are you still going to like me after I say this? I don't know. You do have a really good ability to just be confident and say what you think and without fear. And you're right. Like, that is something that is needed in order to create any relationship, you know, like, you have to have a level of vulnerability. And the scary part about that is not just, I don't think it's just the vulnerability part, it's being vulnerable first. The first person to be vulnerable is taking the bigger risk. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. It's hard to be that person sometimes to, you know, especially if you are a people pleaser world, it's like, I could lose them and they could hate me or they could judge me, and that like downward spiral of negative thoughts rolls in. And it's taken a long time, you know, for me to be more aligned with somebody like you, where it's like, that's okay. Like, maybe they don't like what I had to say, then that person's not for me, and that's okay. Or maybe they didn't reciprocate that feeling, or they maybe they don't like me, you know. It's like, that's okay. And like, what a whole mind-blowing experience too is learning that yes, we should be vulnerable, yes, we need to step outside of our comfort zone, and that's where we can really find good relationships and good friendships. But we also run the risk of, hey, not everybody likes you, and that's okay. And I think we have to really do a lot of our own internal work to be okay with that. And then just remember that as a society, that like, hey, you're not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. Like, we're not supposed to be. Could you imagine if we liked everybody? Like, how boring. The world would be so boring.
Yeah. Well, and I heard the best thing, and I don't know why, you know, like, sometimes you've probably heard something before, but every once in a while you hear it and you're like, oh, it opens your eyes back up to it and gives you a new perspective. But they were talking about, like, if you do something or say something and they don't like it, then you're just scaring off the wrong people to attract the right people. And you're going to you're more likely to attract the right people by still saying what you feel and how you honestly believe than trying to just not offend or hope that they like you because of what you said, you know?
Yeah. Just saying what we think, you know. It's like, where's the boundary of like not being mean, not doing anything quote unquote bad, but knowing that like I'm going to stand firmly in what I believe and say what I believe and do it without trying to hurt anybody. And it's like, yeah, but we still might offend somebody. We still might piss somebody off, and we still might make somebody say that, we're the devil. But it's okay. Like you said, it's like, cool, then you're just taking up space in my circle then. And I need you to go, because that space needs to be filled by the person that belongs there, and it's not you.
Yeah. A great book that I read was The Energy Bus, and it talked about like the right people getting on and the right people getting off, and some people will ride the bus for a long time, and some people are there for just a short part of it, and that's okay too. All of them are, significant in the journey.
Yes.
But not everyone will ride the bus the whole time.
My aunt, I think it was my aunt.
You said aunt. Who are you? Where are you from?
Know.
You said aunt.
There's a U in the word. Very East Coast family, aunt. But she gave the book to my sister. I think my sister was like in her early 20s, a long time ago. And so now we have this saying in our family. It just became like stuck from that. It's like, kick them off the bus. Like, and we all know what it means, and it's like anytime, and mostly obviously in our like teens and 20s, it was always in relative to a boyfriend or, something like that. It became this saying in our house. And like, if we were complaining and it was giving enough red flags to the rest of the family members, that was the default. Like, cool, kick them off the bus. Like, next, see you later.
You got to get rid of those energy vampires.
I love it. Yeah, the energy bus. That's a good one. Man, what about you? How is like going from small town to another small town? Well, your town isn't small, but where you live is small. Yeah.
So I commute. Yeah, so I commute about 45 minutes to go to work. And I don't really do anything else in the town where I work except work here. And then I have a different town where I go to a gym, and then a different town where I go to church.
Gosh.
Yes. Because I literally live like in no man's land. It's 20 minutes just to a gas station. And so like Will's parents live in the town where we go to church, but we don't go to the same church as them even. So that's even weirder, right? Because they go to a very old school traditional church, and we found kind of a newer, more modern church. And then the gym is just better access for both of us. But it's 20 minutes the opposite direction of where I work, like the other way. So it's not super convenient. But we like to work out together, and that's been really important for our relationship. Hello, puppers.
This is Charlie. She's very needy. And
Yes.
I'm sorry. I wanted to hear that last part that you said, and I got distracted. So it's what part of that's been really important for your relationship?
Oh, yeah. Will and I working out together. It's kind of like our
yeah.
dates. Because we have like a 20-minute drive to the gym. So it's just us, having kind of, he calls them like dates, like we have that time in the car where it's just the two of us. And then we went through a phase where we worked out together for a while, and then we separated and did different things for a while. And now we're coming back and working out together again. So that's been good for us. But kind of like you said, like it's sort of eliminated my chance of making friends at the gym because I'm with him, so I don't really meet other people in the gym. And then mostly it's either really old people or college kids in the gym where I go. So same, like not really my demographic. And then I like the people at church, but I only see them on Sundays, and they all have more in common because their kids go to school together or they work together because they're all in that town except for us. So it's been really challenging, honestly, more so here than even in Alpine. I was kind of down and complaining to Will about not making friends, and I needed friends. And then I was like, oh, wait, I don't actually have time for friends.
Right.
Like I haven't made any space for friendship, like time anywhere, because it's going to take away from something else that I want to do. Either it's going to take away from time from him or time for work or time for my side projects that I'm working on. And so what do I want to sacrifice?
What a great point to bring up too, just in general of so often in life I feel like we say things that we want, and I'm a big manifester. I love manifestation, and I think that all that stuff is amazing. And a big part of the journey that I'm on with that right now is you can say something, but if you're not aligning your actions to the thing that you're saying, it's not going to happen, right? So I can run around all day. And the same thing, I was doing the same thing when we moved down here. I was telling him all the time, I don't have any friends, and I love you and I love hanging out with you, but I don't have any friends here, and I blah blah blah. But the actions that I was taking were not doing anything to get me closer to having friends. So it's I'm complaining, but then I'm not doing anything about it, and it's great that you had that awareness, that self-awareness to be yeah, I want more friends, oh wait, I don't want to give up any of this stuff. And if this stuff is taking up all my space, then that just means I don't have friends right now. And
Yeah.
it will always be like that, right? Like you're going to evolve and some projects will come off your plate and things will move, and then you'll have time to be like, oh yeah, okay, now I can make time for this. How am I going to go out into the world and make friends?
And I'm a little bit of a loner, like I need alone time to replenish and refresh and come back and do it again. And especially when I'm teaching, because it is so social that I mentioned, kind of that extroverted introvert. So I need to like withdraw a little bit. And so I get up in the morning and like Will knows, like, probably don't talk to me for the first 2 hours that I'm awake. Not because I'm rude or mean. I just need alone time.
Yeah. I'm the same way. When we started living together, oh my God, my man wakes up in the morning, just puts the TV on. Literally first thing. And I'm like, shh. What are you doing? Like, we had such very different routines. Like, same thing, like teaching is draining, right? And as a
Yeah.
instructor, a teacher, you spend your whole day talking. You spend your whole day pouring yourself out for others, creating space for others. It's mentally exhausting. It's emotionally exhausting. It's physically exhausting. And, and obviously so rewarding. Otherwise we wouldn't do it. But like, yeah, when you come home, sometimes I don't even turn the radio on. Like when I'm driving home, like no, silence is fine. Like,
yes,
I'm really okay with no sounds at all.
Yes. So I do get that. And I do want to give a shout out to high school teachers, because the one semester that I taught dual credit and taught high school students, I'm a noise person. Like I'm kind of like your man. I like the radio. I like the TV. I like noise. But man, that semester I was like, I can't handle noise. Zero noise ever. So shout out to public school teachers.
Yes, I have a lot of respect for teachers. I got away from teaching kids almost as fast as I could. And I like children, I do. It's a different type of rewarding to work with the youth. It's such an incredible thing, but yeah, it's freaking exhausting.
Yeah.
And adults aren't much better. Like I love my CrossFit athletes. I do. But there are some days, it's so funny, I think it was last week, I have a class that's just, it's CrossFit. It's the best hour of their day. They should have such a great time. And like my job is to like, are you safe and having fun? Cool. I'm doing the right thing. And there are days where I'm like, there's no safety and there's no workout and you're just having fun. Like we're not doing something right. And we had this moment where like I really take the time before my classes to prep everything. I put out a lesson plan, like I don't do the programming. Our owner does that. But I plan the class and I think about the layout of the floor and I get the equipment out and I check to see who's coming and like all the things. We had this class where we needed boxes out and I had already counted and I had all the boxes out, the right types of boxes for the right athletes and scaled and modified for who needed it. And I see athletes, I was like, hey, y'all, do this and this and this and find your box. And when you're done, go sit on your box. People are like grabbing new boxes and start roaming and doing other things. I had to put my teacher voice on, like my little kid, like when I'm teaching baby ballet teacher voice, and like yell at these adults and be like, everybody sit down. And everyone's like, and I was like, okay. I forgot that it's an adult class, but some days, it is exhausting. It's been hard, like leading that back to friendship. I'm in a position where I want to be friends with these people, but also, I'm their coach. And so like that professional barrier is there a little bit because they are my age or a little bit older, a little bit younger, but they all kind of revolve. Like we could go out and have drinks and have fun. And like we've done events and things. I've had people over to my house, but it does kind of create this like weird balancing act where it's like, cool, I've got friends now that when they come into the gym, I am now their coach, and it's a different dynamic that has to happen. But I also can't not be their friend. It's like I can't not be that for them. Yeah, that's a challenging dynamic for sure.
Yeah, that fitness setting it creates like a false friendship, right? Because when I was personal training, especially, you would spend so much one-on-one time with someone that it could get unhealthy almost, right? Like you learn so much about these people because in rest periods, they're just talking or you're talking. And yeah, you have to really watch that boundary. It's very challenging. Running a fitness boot camp, I remember I can sympathize with you that they had a code for when I would turn my back, and they would warn each other when I was about to look at them, so that if they were slacking off or doing something that they shouldn't, they had a code. It was like caw, because we worked out outside, so they would make a bird noise and be like caw if I was turning to look at them. Yeah. But the other thing, like you talked about being friends with your coworkers, I do want to caution people because I thought my coworkers were my closest friends at one of my previous jobs. And when I was no longer in that position anymore, they weren't my friends anymore. They were they were just my work friends. And so that was one of the things that I found in the research, is that most of us have acquaintance friends, or like positional friends, situational friendships, where we're friends with them in certain situations, but maybe we wouldn't necessarily call them to go hang out to do something else with us, right? Like we're friends when we see them in the gym, or we're friends when we see them at church, but they wouldn't necessarily, kind of going back to what you said, that like we don't necessarily have to call all those people our friends.
Yeah.
You know? Would you turn to them in a time of need? Would you call them, like if you just wanted to invite someone to spend a day with, you know? So I think that that's the other caution about that too, of finding those boundaries. It is really, it is really hard, because, we just got finished saying you have to be vulnerable, but at the same time, there's also these boundaries that you've got to be aware of as well.
Yeah, I think, and so much of that too comes from your own personal self-development, right? Learning about yourself, learning about your values, what's important to you, learning about if you are or are not a good boundary setter, and how can you get better at that. You can't just walk around the world and just be vulnerable with every stranger that you meet and hope that everybody becomes your friend. Like, that's not a good approach. There's a level of risk taking that has to happen, but like you said, you've got to be able to take the risk and be able to know where that boundary is. Like, nope, that was too far, or that person said something that, like, maybe it's not a red flag, but it's like a yellow flag. It's like, all right, let me just kind of put that in the back burner and come back to it. And if we don't have that self-awareness of things that we're willing to stand for and not stand for, and things that we're, and it's same for like romantic relationships too. Like, I can't count the number of bad relationships I've been in because I took the yellow flag and was like, that's fine, just throw that in the trash, we don't need to talk about it. And then it turns into like this big giant red flag, 3 weeks later. And it's like, those are the things that we have to internally know about ourselves and be able to distinguish all of those factors. And like, oh my God, is that hard? Like, being a human it's complex. It's a lot of work that goes into this. And so what do we do about that? Like, how do we find friends?
Yeah.
What should we do? How do we make more friends? I need more friends.
I think it is definitely challenging, and hopefully it goes back to, if you're a parent right now, helping your kids develop emotional intelligence. And kind of, again, why we're having this podcast is that health and wellness and living a full life is so much more than just one facet. It's so multifaceted. And I love when I get to teach a wellness class and teach the full 8 dimensions of wellness, and help people understand that this is more than, that wellness is not just fitness or nutrition, that it's so much more. And so making friends, I mean, the obvious suggestions were, find people that have the same hobbies as you, like we met at the gym. And then even churches or book clubs or volunteer work, those are usually the best places to meet people. The research and the experts offered that you have to go into it with a growth mindset. You have to be willing to believe that you can make new friends, that it's not too late for you to make new friends, and that there are people willing to open up to you and share with you. And that you do have to make an effort, like you did with us in Alpine. Like, all right, we're having Wine Wednesday. Here we go. You're coming to my house. This is what we're doing. So you have to make an effort. And I think you said it too, like, you have to go first. Someone has to be willing to be vulnerable. And then you have to make the time, which we've already talked about. Like, if you really want a friend, are you willing to make time for it? And what would you have to say no to in order to say yes to that friend? And, is the trade-off worth it? Do you actually really want friends, or you're just saying you want friends because you feel like you don't have any?
Yeah, that's the make time thing too. It's harder as adults, and I think this is important, for anybody listening. Like, if you are out of college, adult, it's remembering that just because a person, again, here's the balancing act, right? It's like somebody might blow you off or say they can't make it, keep reaching out. Again, this kind of comes down to like our boundary setting. Like, how many times am I going to ask to hang out with this person before I go, cool, I'm out? And not in a negative way, but just in a understanding that that person's priorities right now are different than being my friend. And that's okay. And also remembering that, like, I mean, I have a friend here that, we're probably more acquaintance friend blend than anything else, just because we don't see each other very often. We don't hang out often. And we're very sporadic when it's like, what are you doing? Get coffee? No, I can't. Cool. Next week? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. And it's just like this back and forth, but we both try. And am I going to go out of my way to try to see this person all the time? No. They're busy, I'm busy, but I don't hold it against them every time they say no to me. I hope that they don't hold it against me every time I say no to them. And there's no negativity there either. I think as we get older, that has to change, because when we're younger, it's offensive, right? It's like, oh, they don't hang out with me, you know? That mindset,
we get our feelings
like you said,
hurt.
yeah, that growth mindset has to happen in a couple different ways. I have to be willing to know that things can be different, and I can make new friends. I can do this thing. And we have to remember that making new friends and building friendships is different than how it was when we were in college, and different than how it was when we were in high school, and way different than how it was when we were in elementary, when we were super vulnerable and everybody was your friend. Yeah, just the time thing. I know that I find myself having to constantly remember and battle not being offended because somebody doesn't want to hang out with me, which sounds crazy to say at, 35, but here I am still being like, my feelings are hurt, which is okay. But so I love that. So book clubs, I'm a big fan of book clubs, gym, churches or volunteer areas, or any type of I even looked for meditation groups when I moved out here. I Googled if there were places that did community meditation, any type of spiritual connection, because I think that's important too. It's like, again, referring to the blue zones, you have to have some type of spiritual element, whatever that might be for you, and finding people who share that similarity with you. I think those things are important, and finding community and relationship with people that believe similar to you. It doesn't have to be the same. Did you ever use a friendship app? They have dating apps now for making friends.
So when I was single and playing on the dating apps, I kind of creeped on the friendship side of them. I think Bumble had that.
Yeah, I feel like that's how they started.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've heard people talk about it, but I just didn't have such a great experience with the dating part of it that I felt like the friendship part felt even creepier, right? It made me feel desperate. Oh, if I'm desperate for friends, then you're desperate for friends, and I don't want someone who's desperate.
Oh my God,
I don't know.
If
you don't have friends, and I don't know, it just has a weird connotation.
It is a little strange. I think it's becoming more popular. I know Meetup is an app that is fairly popular. And I know people use it. This is what I think is cool about it. You can use it for different things now. It's these group settings where it's hey, we're all going to go play volleyball. Oh, cool. Just a group of people doing an activity. And then I actually joined, I haven't done anything with it because who knows why, but there are Facebook groups now that are local meetups, and it'll be, women only, or, CrossFit only, or volleyball only, or whatever the thing is that you like. You can join a Facebook group in your local community to go do an activity, versus Bumble, which is hi, want to be friends? That is weird. I admit, that's super great. Ugh,
yeah. So I actually did that. So when you say meet up to go play volleyball, that sounds super intimidating to me. I would probably never do that. But I'm also the same person who drove all the way across to the opposite side of the state. And we've talked about how big Texas is, to go on a women's hiking retreat of women that I had just met on Facebook in a Facebook group. They wanted to do a hiking and yoga retreat. And so I went from West Texas to East Texas, and we camped overnight, and we did a hike, and we played in the lake, and we did some yoga together.
Oh, that's
women
awesome.
I'd never met.
Are you still in contact with any of them?
No, that's the unfortunate part, again, because we all came from, and that's where I really struggle with friendships the most. I'm great at that, social interaction. I can go and I can do, and we can have conversations, but I'm not great at taking it to the next level and getting to, I don't know how to say it, getting roots, getting roots.
It's hard.
And so that's where I really struggle.
It's hard, I think, for all the things that we just said, right? It's hard because you have a full-time job, and you're a mom, and you're planning a wedding, and you have all these other things, and you're an author, by the way, which you did not mention, and I just realized you didn't say that. You are a published author, which is freaking cool, working on her second book.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot going on. You're doing so many things that fill your soul. It's not an unrealistic thing to be in the place of like, yeah, it's hard to build a new relationship, which I think, again, kind of circles back to that, like, creating more time, you know, and being willing to have gaps that are bigger than what we might want them to be with people who could potentially be friends. And it's like, cool, our dating phase might be a lot longer then, right? I might be dating this person for a long time before I get to call them friend. And that's okay, you know?
Well, and something else I was thinking about is that I think you and I, when we met in Alpine, we're in very different places in our relationships with our significant, you know, like with our dating lives. And so friendship was more, we were more tethered to friends because we didn't have that other thing. And so now we've both taken time to develop healthy, happy relationships. And it does make a big difference. And now I find myself looking more for couple friends than for solo friends because if I find a girlfriend, I'm like, but that takes away from time with my fiance because I work. So I'd really rather have couple friends.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other, you know, that's a whole other ballpark, right?
It is. That is a very different thing. You know, we finally get to be those people that are like, oh, I understand the couple thing. I get that now. I know why you want to do that. Because, when you're single, it's like, well, that's dumb. Like, why are you not hanging out with me? Like, that's why.
You don't have to ask him to go do something. What kind of woman are you?
Right? So submissive. I think that's a good place for us to wrap up our friendship stuff. You know, all of these different opportunities that are out there. And again, we can kind of put this in our show notes and our social media after this episode of like, what are ways that you can go out and meet friends? And what are different things that you like? And like, that's a good place to start is like, what do you like to do? Now go do that thing, you know, and go do that thing with the intentional mindset of talking to a stranger, right? Talking to somebody else, because it's totally like, oh, I love to go to the gym, but I love to go to the gym with my hoodie on and my hat down and my earphones in, and it's like, I'm working out like this. Like, you're not going to make friends. Like, that's just, nobody's going to come up and talk to you unless they need you to spot their bench press. You're not going to make friends that way.
So we can help them out. So if you have someone that you're courting as your friend right now, why don't you tag them in our show or send them this episode, and maybe that can open the door to a conversation about taking a friendship to the next level.
And that's our challenge for everybody listening this week. Go make a friend. Or like Shanna said, take your courtship up a step. Like, bring that person that you're like, I think this could be my buddy. I think this could be the one. And see what happens. And let us know. You know, you guys, we'll put all of our information out there. We want to hear your stories, your feedback. So if you have a friendship story, if you have an experience, or you have an experience in a week from now, email us, find us on our social media, let us know how that went.
For tips for how you made your friends. So you've gotten to know the surface level of Heather and I, but we want to take our friendship with you all, the listeners, to the next level. And you're going to learn a little bit more about Heather and I. In the second episode.
Yes, our friendship is, it's going to get very serious in episode 2. We're going to get very personal in episode 2. All right. So episode 2. The Witch and the Sex Addict. All right. Let us know what you guys think. Who's who?
Which one of us is which? Oh, I love it.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening. And Shanna, thank you so much. I love getting to chat with you. And, you know, per usual, we had a great idea of what this would be. And then we are talking about 800 different things in this episode. But I think we did a good job of, like, keeping the root of friendship. And I'm excited to chat with you again soon.
Can't wait.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We are so grateful for your time, energy, and feedback. If you liked what you heard today, please share, subscribe, and like our podcast on all your favorite streaming services.
Be sure to check out our show notes for references, books, articles, and other podcasts we love. Also, if you related to today's episode, we would love to hear from you. Send us a message on any of our socials or shoot us an email with your story.
If you are interested in sponsoring, donating, or helping this podcast stay up and running, please contact us at soulfulsciencepodcast@gmail.com for details. Your support keeps us going. Remember, the journey to wholeness starts within. See you next time on Soulful Science.